Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez.
And I'm Kevin Friel. We'd like to remind you right at the top that the meetings we cover are available on demand at the town's website. You can log on at www.town.barnstable.ma.us. Coming up on Wednesday, March 3rd, a week from today, the Barnstable Municipal Airport Commission will hold a public meeting here at Town Hall to discuss the airport's proposed master plan, which will govern all future construction projects on airport property over the next decade or more.
Earlier today, Mark Nelson and Joe Longo, principals at the Horsley Witten Group, who have been working with the Airport Commission and staff on the master plan, stopped by the studio to discuss some of its major features in front of next week's meeting. All right, a public informational meeting on the airport's master plan is coming up next week here at Barnstable Town Hall. And to talk to us about it, two guys who have been very involved in developing the master plan throughout the process, Mark Nelson and Joe Longo, principals at the Horsley Witten Consulting Group. Guys, thanks so much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, let's just to give people an idea as to what they can learn even more about next week. Take us through, if you would, the process of how these improvements were decided upon, and give us a little bit of an overview as to what the airport master plan is all about.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. The airport master plan is built on planning that goes on a regular basis by the airport and their engineers on a 5-year basis to fulfill requirements from the Federal Aviation Administration on what can take place at the airport over the next 5 to 20 years.
Okay.
And we've taken that initial master plan and built that looking very carefully at the regulations from the town of Barnstable and from the Cape Cod Commission to come up with a plan that would show build-out at the airport, what could take place here over the next 10 to 15 years, and use that as a guidelines for what could be permitted and eventually built out at the airport.
Now, I'm curious as to, we're talking about possibilities here, but clearly specific things were selected. Can you explain kind of the rationale, especially the focus on more expanded accommodations for general aviation aircraft?
Sure. There's three main areas of future development that's possible out at the airport. And this is built on the premise that the current terminal project that's been permitted by the Cape Cod Commission and by the town will be built. Mm-hmm. And from that, what else is possible? What could be built at the airport? We've taken a look at that, and there's three primary areas where there could be improvements out at the airport. One is to have additional hangars and facilities for general aviation aircraft that use the airport. There is a waiting list for people that would like to have indoor storage for their plane that's currently at the airport. There's a desire and the potential for existing tenants that use the airport and are part of the economic engine that is the airport to expand their facilities. Companies such as Cape Air have the ability to potentially grow the terminal and the facilities that they're working with. And then the third area is basic aviation improvements to increase aprons for aircraft storage and to improve runways, not runways, but taxiways along both sides of the airport to increase and improve aviation safety at the site.
Okay, very good. Now, all of these potential improvements, and again, these are just potential improvements, and nothing is set in stone. It's just things that might be able to happen over the course of the next decade plus. Joe, I'll ask you this. I know that there are a pretty rigorous set of performance standards that all of these potential projects would have to adhere to going forward. Talk a little bit about the necessity for putting those controls in place and what they are specifically.
Okay, well, that's the idea. The airport's located on top of several zones of contribution to drinking water supply wells for Hyannis and Yarmouth. So moving forward with development, we wanted to implement some performance standards for that development, and they are based on development standards that are now in place in the local comprehensive plan, Barnstable's local comprehensive plan, as well as the Barnstable DPW engineering requirements. When you develop, you'd have to do it in a certain way, as well as the Cape Cod Commission's regional policy plan. So we've focused on the environmental protection of groundwater in particular because of its location. In this new development, all new or renewed leases would be subject to these performance standards. Some of the standards that they'd have to comply with would be management of hazardous materials in a certain way. We've limited the quantities that can be allowed in certain developments of hazardous materials, as well as pre-treatment of stormwater before re-injected into the ground to be protective again of the drinking water supply wells. as well as connection of the existing or new development on the east ramp in particular of the airport to town sewer. Now there's private septics up there, and they're going to have to connect to town sewer if they redevelop or new folks come in. Those are the things we've tried to focus on with regard to new development and be protective of the environment at the airport. And again, they're all in the draft master plan, which we posted on the website at the town, and we go into more detail next week at the public hearing.
Now, Joe, just a follow-up question there. In developing all these performance standards, especially in regard to groundwater protection, it's got to be an additional challenge to come up with a master plan like this with the location of the airport specifically, because obviously in most communities that you go to, the airport is in a fairly isolated spot, but in this particular situation, it's there's the single-source aquifer of Cape Cod, of course, and you're in a highly residential area where a lot of people presumably are relying on that drinking water.
It is, and I think that's the exact reason we're doing this. We're making these, we're going to try and make these improvements with regulations that protect that environment, and that any new development would the lease before it's signed or before a new development can happen, they'd have to meet these requirements in order to develop. That would be reviewed again by the airport management and the town, or the airport's management and their engineers.
Now, obviously, people are going to have a chance to learn a lot more at the public hearing, which is coming up in just a few days here. But beyond that, does the town council have to sign off on this plan eventually? Yes?
The master plan has been reviewed by the growth management department, and it was a requirement of the town council's resolve, which was part of the original terminal improvement project permit. So it will ultimately be signed off by the town council.
And then once that happens, once it's finally approved, what does the process look like going forward from there, Mark?
The process after that, after the master plan is presented to the town council in fulfillment of the resolve that's out there for the terminal project to move forward, the airport's going to move forward to create a development agreement between the town and the airport and the Cape Cod Commission, basically pre-approving over time any future construction that takes place out there. So as the airport moves forward to enter into a new lease agreement with a future tenant or to expand a lease agreement with an existing tenant, they won't have to go and do the permitting themselves. It will be done prior to that, and gives an overall more holistic planning effort that can work very well for the airport moving forward.
Very good. And just before I let you guys go, just a point of clarification for everyone. Obviously, you're not members of the Airport Commission. You're not on the airport staff specifically. You're a consulting group. So just talk a little bit about your role in how this was all developed, just to let people know.
Sure. We've facilitated a lot of the work that was done by the Airport Commission and the airport management staff in terms of what they wanted as part of this master plan. We did the overall regulatory review as to what is possible and what is of concern, and help develop many of the performance standards to make sure that the groundwater under the airport and the groundwater that many of us drink is going to be protected for years to come.
You can learn much more about the airport's proposed master plan at next week's public meeting, which, again, will be held on Wednesday, March 3rd at 6:30 inside Town Hall Hearing Room. In the meantime, you can click on over to the airport's website to read the full plan for yourself.
Before we go, let's take a look at the remaining meetings for this week. On Wednesday, February 24th, there's an amnesty hearing in the Town Hall Hearing Room at 6 p.m. That's followed at 7 p.m. by a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in the Town Hall Hearing Room. Also at 7 p.m., the Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission meets at the West Barnstable Community Center on Route 149. On Thursday, February 25th, the Town Council meets in the Town Hall Hearing Room. That meeting begins at 7 p.m. Well, that's all the time we have for now. For Kevin Friel, I'm Nick Cortese. We'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.